the world is affected by climate change. Our part of the world has high levels of sun exposure, so we're conscious of that, and how we can utilise that to our advantage, but also how we need to consider that from our health perspective, from our social perspective.
I think that communities like this are now realising that their future depends on sustainable practices.
The community identified that it wanted to be really audacious in its goal, in that it wanted to become a climate change role model. And instead of just identifying one or two key projects it wanted to achieve, by saying it wanted to be a role model, it's an ongoing process. About 5 years ago, Oyen was involved in a state government initiative called the Rural Futures Initiative. And it had a focus on 4 key themes, which is around health, demographic change across the areas, agriculture and climate change. And as a part of the process, we engaged some futurists from Swinburne University and brought them up to really challenge the community about how it saw itself. Given that we're agricultural based, the climate plays a significant role in everyone's lives, not just the weather, but its impact on the economic drivers of the community. Most of our farmers live in Oyen and have kids and families and things, so there's a real push for water use efficiency, so that maintaining the soil, maintaining the water that actually falls on the soil, and it's getting more expensive and more difficult to sustain the economic base of agriculture. So the farmers have had to make some significant inroads into the way that they actually manage their land and their soil. And the community, I think, is just an extension of that, in that it needs to manage the resources that it can, if really, really efficiently.
We farm about 20 kilometres northwest of Oyen. We're predominantly just all barley and wheat and canola. We're 4th generation farmers, and we've farmed from the conventional type of method up to currently we're doing direct drilling. Direct drilling basically is sowing directly into last year's stubble, so you're not doing any cultivation whatsoever, and you're retaining all the organic matter on the surface, and it stops us from eroding all our country with the wind. For the last 90 years, the farming practice has been fairly similar in the area. Basically, the country's been ripped up, then worked again mechanically with tractors and machines, and what that does is it opens us up to wind erosion into the topsoil blowing away. And and we've gradually gone away from that to less and less cultivation, to the current methods where we just basically one pass with the machine and sow it without any wind erosion whatsoever. So I think farms need to get bigger and bigger to survive. It's with the costs going up and our actual profit going down, so we need to be bigger and more economy to scale to make that work. Direct drilling is something that does fit that very well. But as well as that, it's just, like I said before, just the idea of having your country blow through the fence into the neighbour's paddock or up into the atmosphere is, when you get those bad windy days, it's pretty devastating to see.
I think we're a little bit fortunate that as farming transitions from one generation to the next, it's actually bringing some of those young people back. And it's bringing back young people who have gone away and achieved some really strong things in their own personal lives, so that they come back and bring a raft of skills with them. And that's not just brought back to the farm, but it's brought back to the community. And we have people like Dean Munro, who sits on a number of committees and is involved, and we have others who have come back who again become engaged in the community, because as I said earlier, this is where they've chosen to live, so why not make it the best place that it can be.
In 2008-2009, the students conducted some surveys around recycling and just how to improve their local environment. One of the things that they came up with was that Oyen didn't have a recycling service. So the students at the time wrote letters to the Mildura Rural City Council and asked the council if they could have a recycling service for Oyen. Within the next 12 months to 2 years, we were notified that there was indeed a recycling service planned, and in the last 12 months that has actually taken place. So the students like to think that they were the beginning of that program. We have a group of students in the grades 2 to 4 area who are responsible for the recycling in the school. They'd organised bins, they've been responsible for the education of the other students around which bin to use, and we've actually reduced our rubbish collection considerably. We've also then been able to use the food scraps and any peelings for the hens that the children are keeping in their garden area and for compost. And then with the some of the recycled plastics and things, they're used for some of the art activities, so they're then reused. One of our main concerns was that in this day and age, children hear often so much negative press about their environment and the world around them. So, for example, they'll study endangered species, or they'll hear on the news about climate change. And it's very easy for them to become overwhelmed and feel helpless in the face of that. And we felt that by giving the students something that they could plan and implement themselves, that we were teaching them that they could in fact have some control over their future and their community, in the hope that as they grow into adults, each one of those will then see that they actually can make a change in their world for the better.
It's interesting because obviously everyone's awareness around the environment and the carbon footprint is growing all the time. We've undertaken a project with Blackburn Park and the Owen United Football Club, and we've installed a solar system to the rooftop of the club rooms, which is a substantial project in its own, funded by the Victorian Government, supported by Mildura Rural City Council and a range of other local groups. It was a $50,000 project and benefits the community as a community facility in an ongoing manner.
Both the football club and the secondary college, or the P12 college, have 1/4 megalitre rainwater tanks, so they capture and harvest rainwater, which they then use to maintain their fields and ovals and stuff. So given that we have an extremely dry climate here in Ogun, being able to harvest whatever rain falls and use it again will make a big difference. So the environmental aspect is now just plays a much greater part involved in the school, the football club, the golf club, and just in general people's lives. So it's been a springboard from that point onwards.
The community itself is very active. Everybody wears a couple of hats in volunteerism. We're diverse in as far as we have an interest in the arts, an obvious interest in sports. We pursue the community plan and the projects identified within. We're not talkers, we're doers.
As far as the community of Ogun goes, you wouldn't get a better place to bring up kids. Still very, very small crime rates and stuff, and the sporting clubs, like you can go to a tennis or football or golf club and just basically leave your kids and they muck around with everyone else's kids for the day, and everyone that walks past them checks on them to make sure they're doing the right thing, and the community atmosphere is brilliant.
People are in Ogun because they choose to be here. They're not here wanting to move somewhere else or as a halfway point. People are here because they've made the choice to live in Ogun. And as they've made that choice, we want to be able to make the community as sustainable and as viable as it possibly can.
I believe that the community does have a really strong future. No doubt farming will continue to be at its base, but there are many opportunities that we could embrace in a little place like this as well.